How are you doing?
Doing well, man. How are you?
Good. Yeah, man. I appreciate you being here. You got a lot of awesome things you do between you and your wife, and brought you on mostly to talk about social media, something that's caught my interest recently. It's applicable to so many different businesses, all different businesses, you could say. And you manage some social media accounts. Can you tell me a little about how you're doing and what your life's like as a social media dude?
Yeah, I would love to, man. My wife started her social media in 2014 and quickly grew to like 100,000 followers, and Vice picked her up. And then Instagram reposted her and she grew to, something like 250,000 followers. And because of that quick increase in fame, I guess, or attention, she got picked up by a bunch of other people, like a publisher that has published famous works such as Harry Potter, found her Instagram and asked her if she'd write a book for them. So she's a published author now because of her Instagram page. And we saw the power of that. And one day we were just watching a video of some very rich, well-known investor guy. And she said, I want to run social media accounts for people like that. And then 3 months later, she saw he was hiring for social media, and now she's the manager. She was the manager for him for a year. And then when we were inside of that group, it was just a bunch of really cool investor guys that really didn't want to do much. They wanted to kind of delegate and offset so that they could buy their time back, which is actually how we found Dan Martell, who wrote the book Buy Back Your Time. We met with Amanda Hahn, pretty famous CPA, and she said she has a bunch of 9, 10 figure entrepreneurs, real estate investors that don't want to run their own Instagram but see the value of it. So we did a demonstration or a presentation on how important Instagram and social media is as a whole. Talked about a couple of tactics you could use like today to make your following a little bit better. Shared a couple of ways that we like to generate leads from every like, comment, view that comes into our Instagram channels. And then we ended up getting like 3 or 4 clients from that and made pretty significant income. We moved out of the real estate investing industry, the niche, serving them, and then we started to serve other types of people, functional health. I do a hypnosis coaching group. I do their Instagram, and then I do a functional diagnostic group as well that's pretty famous. It's one of the oldest functional medicine curriculums like in the planet, and I run their social media. I do their video in person, and then I cut their videos and make them for Instagram. And I think one of the things, no matter what industry we do it in, one of the things that everyone has in common is a story. And like through your story, you can create an audience or select an audience that can benefit from your story. And helping people tell a story is a really powerful way to get them to expand and tell into their niche, into their audience. And that, I think, is what makes my wife so naturally gifted, is her story is compelling by itself, and other people can benefit from hearing it because it's empowering, it's illuminating. And then through telling that story, she's able to expand her brand, and other people say like, maybe my sister can be empowered, maybe my mom can be inspired. So just through word of mouth, we're able to use our stories to expand brands.
Interesting. I mean, there's so many different paths we can go down there, and I hope we have time to go through them all. But just on that last thing you said, telling stories, what do you think makes a good story? And is there, a preference of like what stories draw you or make you want to work with a client in particular? Or are some people's stories, objectively better or worse than other people's stories? And like I guess what makes a good story and how do you one identify that and then pull that out of the whatever client or person you're talking to?
That's a good question. I think there's pillars to a story. It has to be relatable. It has to be educational or entertaining or edutaining, I think is the like border between those two.
Right.
And then it has to be relevant and repeatable. So if you can tell a story that's relevant to others, then that makes a really good, like that is the first thing I look for in a client. If there's a couple of examples here of some people who say some really off base stuff, and a lot of haters online will say, you didn't read the room, or that's really not relevant to like like the lowly peasants while you're sitting up there in your kingdom. And like those guys that are sitting in the kingdom, I'm thinking of a few like Hermosi. He's got he's incredible volume of income, but he didn't start up there. He started down here. And he tells the story of how he made it up there. And I see all the time on his Instagram, people are saying, doesn't help. But like he is always very good at making it relatable to people, no matter where they are the arc towards success. And then there's also people outside of Hermosi. I guess there's people who don't want to be successful, and they'll see that and say like, "Oh, I'm offended." And he kind of just says like, well, you're not really my audience then. So I think what makes a really good story is being relatable first and being relevant, and then having some form of value like education or entertainment that can make somebody that's watching either feel like they learned something or feel better about themselves or because they watched it. There's like a good example is if you have a friend that every time you talk to that friend, you feel better, you're happier. That's a good storyteller. And it's because you can relate to them, you see yourself in them, or you want to be more like them.
Right. Yeah, so there's two things there. It seems like there you have to know how to tell what a story is, what a good story is, how to tell it. But it seems like on the person that you're talking to or the person whose story you're trying to tell, it sounds like there has to be a certain, and correct me if I'm wrong, like an emotional intelligence or like a wherewithal, a self-realization that they have a story to tell. Like they recognize that there's something in there that is relatable to someone else or is entertaining to someone else, and they're telling that parts of it. Because it's like kind of like talking to like a kid, right? And this is just what I'm thinking of on one side of the spectrum. As you ask like how your day went, good, what did you do? Go to school, and then you have to like keep asking 50 questions, and you pull it out of them, and you're like, oh wow, there's actually something interesting in there. I wonder if you've had any like experience or anything to say on something like that, where there is a good story, there may be a good story there, and there's I don't know, maybe there are people that don't have good stories, I don't know, but seems like there also has to be that extra component of the person being able to like realize that and tell it and then tell it in a way that's relatable or entertaining to whatever audience they're talking to.
Okay, yeah,
Is there anything?
there's a bit to that I can extract. So it sounds like what you're asking is like, are there tactics to get the story out, whether from other people or from yourself?
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering
Yeah.
too if you have tactics to get people to tell their story, and then I'm wondering if you look for people that have that wherewithal too, so that they can help you tell their story, and that you don't have to like grind it out of them, or like like I said, maybe they don't have an interesting story, or maybe they do, but maybe it's just gonna be too much work to try to pull it out of them each time you want to tell their story, or maybe they're going to resist, even, all these subconscious psychological processes. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
kind of trying to shooting questions and seeing what happens. I'm just genuinely curious. Like, have you thought about that or ran across anything along that?
Yeah, no, I have definitely. So, okay, I'm a practicing hypnotist. I've studied hypnosis under our lineage goes back to Milton. Milton trained Bandler. Bandler trained David Kaloff. David Kaloff trained Igor, and Igor trained my mentor, JD. He's like been in hypnosis for 20 years, 2 decades. And there's 1,000 books that are written about other people. How to Win Friends and Influence People is probably the first and best way that I could reference this. But if you have an inherent fascination with other people, you're already you have the advantage of getting that story out of them. If you're actually curious about what it is they're talking about, then you'll take whatever time necessary to extract that from them. And like with a kid, you gave a good example actually in hypnosis. A lot of what you do with adults, you track back to how you operated in child, like as the child. So one of the most hypnotic sentences in the English language is, "Let me tell you a story." And that's because when we were a kid, you start a book with, let me tell you a story. And then all of a sudden you open your imagination. Your unconscious mind is able to imagine those characters or picture yourself there, however it is that you relate to that story. So when you're talking with a client or when you're building a brand, you can ask yourself, well, what is the story I want to tell? Or what's my story? And you really can start with your childhood and say, like, where did I come from? What gaps did I overcome? What changed me or grew me? What was radically something that I can identify as radically shifting from one point to another in my life. And that's typically the best place to start. For example, my wife had Crohn's disease, which is a terminal autoimmune condition, and she has no symptoms. Most people with Crohn's disease can't say that. And her story, that was a pivot from her to say, like, I do not want to be sick. And she, instead of saying that, she said, I'm going to do anything I can to be healthy, to be whole. And it's been 7 years that she spent dedicating her life to like taking her from being sick to being whole, being healed and complete. And that is the reason that her story is so compelling to people, because a lot of people suffer from autoimmune disease. A lot of people are debilitated from their symptoms. And she didn't want that to be her reality. She didn't want to be a victim of her condition. So you find yourself in these moments in life and you say, like, okay, well, I'm challenged. What am I going to do to overcome it? And that's typically the moment where you can tell that story and say what you did, and most people can relate to it. Or it can help them. It can inspire them because they're going through something similar.
Right. Yeah, it's relatable to
Yeah.
people that are going through that or something similar. I wanted to
Yeah.
ask too about your wife get started and got her book published from social media as you mentioned, and then you guys kind of sounds like you took off, hit the ground running. How did you guys know like what to do? How did you guys know what makes like how to manage a social media account? How did you know like the what to do? Like how did you get started?
Well, so she started her company in 2014. We met in 2018 and we watched it grow. It was like just under 200,000 followers, and then we grew it to 280,000 followers, like in a
Right,
very
that's
short period.
that's what I mean. Like, was there like a book like how to win social media friends and influence social media people, or was there like a
That's funny.
checklist? You like we have to do this, this, and this, and that's gonna get us a ton of followers.
Well, we weren't actually thinking about followers. We were thinking about the followers. We weren't thinking about our numbers. We were thinking about who we already had that was listening to us and what we could say for them, to them. It was really about, and every millionaire, every billionaire that I've ever talked with has sat with me and said it has nothing to do with you and what you want. Everything that will pay you money, any value that you add will pay you back. So it's all about what you can do for others. And like the book, to answer your question, the book from Gary Vee, is it Crushing It? It's a big yellow book.
I can look it up. I don't
I
know.
think it's Crushing It by Gary Vee, and it's crushing it. She read that book when we first started. And then we've just always naturally aligned with learning everything all the time and never stopping. There's never enough knowledge that we could attain before we die. So we've always learned what's trending, what do people need, what's happening in the world right now. Those are all ways that we can, from our own little world, reach out into other people's. And something here, so this is a cool story. Let me tell you this. During COVID, like right when COVID kicked off, we had moved on purpose out of California and found ourselves planted in like the rural part of Georgia right before the world shut down. The world shut down in March. We moved in January. We were the only crystal shop not in California selling gems and minerals on Instagram through our e-commerce website. And every time I sent a package to somebody, I would say like they can't leave their house, they can't see their friends. I want to make sure they feel seen, heard, acknowledged, and loved by sending this package to them. And I was sending gifts to everyone all over the world. And we were doing these live Instagram live sales where it was like QVC, where we're showing these display of our gems and minerals and people would come in. But what I started realizing was everybody was there for us, not for the crystals. The crystals were just like something that was there that they could sell. We could sell them and they could purchase them, but they felt connected. This year in February, we went to Tucson Gem Show 5 years later, and we met a couple. It was a mom and daughter, and they said, your Instagram live was the only thing that we had in Seattle, Washington that made us feel like we were connected to the outside world. And that's why we grew so fast, because we were focused on creating that for people without worrying about how many people we had following us and how many likes our views got on our video. We were just thinking about like, how can we make people feel seen, heard, and acknowledged?
Right. So you're adding value and then it paid back on its
Yeah.
own. You guys were I mean, I've heard that too. Another line is that your brand is you. You're your own brand. It's not some other thing. It's your life. It's your unedited, unscripted life, and
Yeah.
people are drawn to that.
Yeah, I'll give anybody that's listening to this a piece of advice for Instagram. And Dan Martell has a private group called Elite. He always says anybody that pays for the group, take everything that he's learned and sell it, make money. Go out into the world, steal everything that I've ever taught and sell it. Go make money with it. So what he said, and it's very important, is when people come to you and you add value to their life as a personal brand, you're more likely to make a connection because they know that there's a person, Dan Martell, behind the Instagram account. And some of our clients refused to adopt that reality. They wanted to just be their company. They didn't want to be the face of the company. None of those people had a successful account. They had a successful business because they'd been operating it since the 90s, but none of them could translate that success to social media. And
How
that
do
is
you
100% of the time.
how do you measure a successful account?
It grows noticeably. You can track the growth, the feedback, guidance that you get from the clients. You can't stay the same, right? You always have to change and innovate. And a successful Instagram will bring clients to you that will tell you your next moves. And those next moves will create even more traction. even more inertia and momentum. When you don't have a successful Instagram, it's a stagnant page that nobody sees, nobody comes to, nobody shares things with you, and it doesn't grow. It just stays exactly where it is.
So I'm a newbie at this. My Instagram is not where it's going to be now. It's not where it's going to be next year and the year after. What is a tip for me or anyone to get started to get that get people on the page to get it out of stagnation?
Yeah, I
Like
mean, my first
what's step
question,
one?
my first question would always be, do you know your audience? Like, do
Right.
you know who you're speaking to? Because if you don't, there's nothing to say.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then if you do, the answer is yes. If it's no, create that. Go find out who it is you want to sell your product to. What is your product? What's your offer? If you have a business, it's obvious that's the business, that's the product. So like in real estate, if you're a real estate investor and you buy a bunch of houses and acquire it, your audience is purchasing investment properties from you. If you're a wholesaler, same thing. If you're a e-commerce product, like selling face products, then you need to find out what your audience needs for face products. If you're a podcaster, you need to find out what your audience wants to listen to. How can you add value to them by bringing the guests, by asking the right questions, by trying these things? And I have a story I'll tell you here in just a second. But to answer your question, once you figure out what your product and offer is, then you find out what your audience is. And once you have your audience, and that's like one of the most important factors in your business is like, if you don't have anybody to sell to, you don't have a business. If you don't have customers, I think Hermosi said that. If you don't have customers, you don't have a business. So if you have to find who your customer is. You have to define that. You don't necessarily need to know the person. You need to know the type of person. And then you test it and you say, I'm going to sell it to them and I'm going to post to them. And if it doesn't work, then you try and narrow it down a little bit more. Then
How
once you've
spec
done that, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, how specific do you want to be when finding your audience? Do you want to be like bilingual males in the greater Seattle area, ages 18 to 30? Like, or is it pretty, or does it stay vague, like real estate investors that are, in wholesaling specifically?
It depends on your product. The first one, bilingual males 18 to 30 in the Seattle area, if you were looking for a Spanish teacher for your school, or if you were looking to create like a group of people that could teach whatever language those people are speaking as a product, then that would be, you're good to go. You've got your, that's narrow, very narrow. If you've broadened it, like what you said with wholesaling, nationwide, it's like there's a rule. And I just read this recently, and I can't remember what book I read it in. The rule is you can't sell to a broad range of people. You can't sell to everyone. You have to sell to somebody. So you have to pick that somebody.
Right. I'm
And
guessing
like,
maybe it depends on your product too, on how broad your audience is.
well, look at Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola sells more internationally. They have more customers than any other company. They have a larger reach than Christianity, which is a pretty big
Wow.
product. That being said, they still don't have the volume proportionately than somebody who's selling to a bilingual 18 to 30-year-old who's in Seattle. And I'll remember what book this is, and you can add it to the description of the video. I just read this. You can't sell to everybody. You have to pick somebody to sell to.
Right. There's thought I had it here for a second. I had the Gary V book that you're talking about.
Crushing it. Is it?
Yeah, crushing it. That was it. But yeah, along those lines too. So you have an audience, and then you start marketing them, and you figure out. But you mentioned something too. You let your audience kind of grows, and then you listen to them, and then you adapt with them. I'm kind of paraphrasing what you said, but just want to ask, like, am I on the right track there? You kind of adapt with what they're asking you. Are you looking at like the comments? Are they reaching out to you directly? Are you getting testimonials and referrals, and then kind of figuring out where you need to pivot and move?
Yeah, it's all of the above. And I didn't build this out before we met, and there's not like I don't have an SOP. Yeah, that's the book. I know that book very well because one of our password, a very important password, is in that book in our house, which is funny.
Oh, nice. I'm gonna read it now.
You should, man. It's
It's
awesome.
I
So,
got a deal here, $8.11.
you what?
It's
Oh
$8.11. It
yeah,
says right
make it
here, so
happen.
it's a great deal.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm trying to
Okay,
sell that
so
right now.
I didn't build this out before we met, but we do have an SOP for intake. And the SOP is we have to make sure you have a product or offer. You have to make sure you have an audience and you're clear on who it is. And then you have to decide whether you're selling as a business or you're selling as a person. Do you want there to be a face of the company? And I said about testing, was that right? About letting the client inform you.
Hmm.
When we run, the most we've ever run is seven different companies simultaneously, and it was in-house, so we only had 2 or 3 employees at the time, plus my wife and I. So between 5 people, we were running 7 different Instagram accounts, reaching 7 different markets, all in different time zones. And it would be impossible to do that successfully without listening to what the customer or client is saying. And it was almost more important as a metric than followers, likes, and views, because when they start telling you things, I don't know if anybody in your group would have read The Game by Neil Strauss, but it talks about like alpha males versus beta males. And it was like the original pickup book that
Oh, nice.
every hypnotist in the world has like memorized that book front to back. But
Nice. I've been
it
told
was
I'm a Sigma male, so
yeah, Sigma's the one on
yeah.
the outlier.
Yeah, that's what people tell me. I don't know if it's
That's
true.
awesome, man. Yeah,
It's
like
probably true.
alpha, but you're alone.
But yeah, like a
And
Ronin.
then there's another one. There's omega male too, which is like a more feminine alpha and omega, the more feminine masculine. But it
Nice.
doesn't. That's not. That's very like you're breaking down a model very distinct. What I'm trying to say here is like when you have the alpha male, when somebody is the leader, people want to know what they have to say. They ask questions. They're trying to get clarity. They want to spend time with you. And you'll notice a lot of really successful. It doesn't even matter if it's a man or a woman. Really successful people will have an extremely neglected cell phone because they don't want to give access 24/7 to their genius because they're utilizing their genius to grow their brand. And people along the way will try, like as you're forming this laser focused tunnel towards success, people will try and attach themselves to you. And I've seen it with my brother and every brand that I've ran where people like he has thousands of messages coming in from every person that he's ever met asking him questions. Oh, they always want money. They're always asking, hey, do you want to invest on this with me? Hey, does this look like a good deal? Because he's been successful, very successful, and people like he's like, it's not my industry. I don't know if that would be a good deal or not. You have to make that decision. But when you become that leader, the alpha male, the guy with all the value, or the woman that's done everything that every woman wants, they have the husband and the kids, and they have this incredible career. They're CEO of a billion-dollar company like Cody Sanchez. She's an enigma because she's done it all and she's done it so successfully. But I bet you if you asked her like how many friends do you have, she'd say a very small number of friends because everyone else who wants to know what she's got going on, they're going to ask her, they're going to give her advice that she doesn't want, like unsolicited advice. And that's how you know you're doing it right. And then people will tell you value. They'll say like, hey, we feel like you're off brand, or when you started your brand, you've changed a lot. You are going in a different direction. It's like, oh, maybe we should, as a group, as a board, address that and say, like, are we going in a different direction? Is this the direction that we've all agreed to? Is this just something that happened naturally? And do we want to go the direction we were going, or do we want to just scratch both and start a new direction entirely?
Interesting. Yeah, I'm reading Cody Sanchez's book, The Main Street Millionaire, right now too.
She's amazing, dude. I met her in Austin.
Yeah.
My wife filmed a podcast with her and
Oh
another.
wow.
She's just like every time I think about who my wife wants to be, it's her. Like that's like our
Nice.
role. That's our goal, our role model. My brother's almost 50, so I always have like an older person that I look up to that I always try and aspire to become.
Interesting. Yeah, I would love to see that podcast if you can shoot me the link or tell me what words to type in to get to it. Love to see that. I saw her at Squad Up Summit last year.
Yeah, yeah,
Too great speech too, and just yeah, a lot of her content is great.
yeah.
I like Hormozy or other people just very it kind of opens your mind and expands it. And so you mentioned your brother is someone you look up to too. Is it important for you to have? Do you think it's important, and did it help you to have someone that is ahead of you and something that you want to emulate, or maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but like having a mentor. Like, have you had mentors in your life? There's like three
Like
questions.
it sounds like an open-ended question, not a.
It is pretty open-ended. Yeah, I just kind of want to see if you can speak to that, speak to like having a mentor, like the importance of that, or maybe that's not you. I don't
No,
know.
I think it's vital if you're competitive. I think it can be really detrimental if you're not. I think if you compare yourself to other people, you usually see that you fail, but they probably feel the same way. And if you don't compare yourself, but you aspire to become similar, your own version of their success, then that's a good thing. I have two
Yeah,
brothers actually.
you were speaking more of, I guess I said mentor, but maybe it's more of a role model. Is that I describe it better? Like
Yeah, it's
having
like
role models?
it's somebody who's, well, here's a good example. This is, I think a quote Bezos may have said, or Ford. The first billionaire, the first person that ever made $1 million in a business was Ford. Right
Okay.
after that, millions of millionaires have been created. He was the first. No one had done it before. And because he did it, other people saw it was possible. Then a billionaire came along, and everyone after that, there was no billionaires. And suddenly there were 400 420 billionaires in 2018.
Wow, yeah,
I'm not sure the number, but it was zero and then there was one. The next person's going to be a trillionaire. And once that happens, many other people will come to follow. Now, obviously, businesses have made that money, but no individual had ever made that before. So it's really interesting to look at that and say, like, when somebody's done it first, and like this is from the SEAL team, is like when you do it first, then other people see it's possible.
right.
Yeah. So I've,
It's like the
go
guy
ahead.
that ran the 4 minute mile, I think. It
There
was
you
the
go.
same thing. Again, now everyone, that's like basic for everybody. Four
That's the
minutes, I think.
standard now,
Yeah,
right? That's like that. He lowered the standard to show it was possible.
yeah, yeah. So, has that affected you at all? Like having, like seeing that it's possible? Did that change your mindset growing up, or having brothers that did that, or like for your wife seeing Cody Sanchez do it? Is that like how
Yeah, like
important was that for you?
I'll reiterate the same thing I said. It's super important if you're competitive. If you are a competitive person, you have to have a goal and you have to keep having goals. You can't just achieve your goal and stop because if you're competitive, you look at the guys who've exited companies in the 8, 9 figures and then they just like shrivel up until they create their next genius idea and then they exit that and they do it over and over again. Those guys are so competitive, maybe against themselves or maybe against their reality, the world, their expectations. And having somebody that's done it before, so I have two brothers. One is an extremely successful chiropractor in San Diego. The other is an extremely successful SEAL, or he's ex-Navy SEAL, but he's currently in the military. He's in the Navy as a special warfare and tactics. So he's like redesigning the strategy of how people do war. Both of them are incredibly successful. And their dad is he's just this incredible man that raised these two guys up. And he married my mom when I was 11, and I was going down a really interesting path until then. And then as soon as he showed up in my life, it was like, oh, everything's possible. I suddenly have these two guys that I can compare myself to, and it's so much brighter and easier to do that when there's an example, like a path to follow. And there's
Interesting.
a lot of guidance, a lot of support, but then also that goal that they both set for me in the future.
Would you describe yourself as a competitive person?
But yeah, I've been hyper competitive since I was younger. I've been competing nationally in whatever I can put my hands on. So like I started video. I was a photographer doing photography when I was younger. My mom is a professional photographer. While she was doing photography, I was learning how to be a marksman and I became a nationally competitive marksman. Like I really wanted to shoot well. And then I went into coffee and I started competing in coffee. And now I'm in video and I want to be like, I want an award somewhere for best video editor, best videographer, or whatever. Like I want that trophy, best of whatever it is that I'm doing.
What's your goals right now? Because you mentioned having goals that keep propelling you and keep,
Always have a goal. Yeah.
yeah, always have a goal.
My goal is to be able to purchase a piece of property without wondering if I'm going to be able to or without having to be creative. Like I want to be able to just say yes to purchases, large purchases in the multi 6 figure, 7 figure area without saying like, how am I going to make that happen? Just say like, yeah, okay, go ahead and buy it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it sounds like building your net worth to get to that point where it's comfortable or
Yeah, I have a path. I have
without
a
ease.
path that's I've designed with my uncle. Him and I created this like he's a genius mathematician, and he created this work optional style of like it's a lifestyle strategy that anybody could use. But basically, you create the number of how much you want to make every month. How much do you need to live on minimally? Because if you find that figure, that number, like let's say it's $5,000, you pay your rent, eat, buy groceries, gas, insurance, and all the other normal monthly expenses. There's a number that everything fits inside of. Once you make that number, you no longer have to think about how much money you need. Once you hit that number. So multiply that by 6 or 10, multiply that by 6, that's your minimum. So you have some account over here that is 6 times that amount. So let's say it's 5,000. You have 30K in an account. Then grow it to 10 times. So that would be 1,000. Then once it's 50,000, you take that 20,000 and you use it, you invest it, and you bring it back down to 30,000. And then it goes back up to 50,000 and you bring it down to 30,000. And every time it reaches 50, you have $20,000 to go and invest in something that can maybe make more money faster. And the reason that you do that is because you want to have this one specific number, this big number, which is 1.8 million. And 1.8 million in real estate will generate $5,000 passively every month. So that strategy is my goal, which will allow me to delete all of the needs, the survival payments that we have to make to live on Earth in the United States. Once those are deleted, then any money that we make after that can be used for whatever we want.
Man, that's interesting. I'm gonna go back and re listen to this and write that down. Do you know how you're going to get there? And have you considered, that's the first question. Have you considered moving to Thailand where you guys can live super cheap and that number can be lower.
I never thought about that. We did think about Puerto Rico because once you've lived there for 6 months, you have no federal taxes.
Yeah, that's the incentive for sure.
It's super incentivizing. There's a 3% cap on business, and I'm not a CPA or, I don't have anything to do with finances, so don't quote me here, but it's like 3% if you're a business and you don't pay federal taxes. So there's an option there. I never thought about Thailand, but we own a house here we're living in it, but we want it to be a rental for like midterm insurance rentals. And once we delete that mortgage payment, then we play with whatever we made. We can just add it to that big main account, and that will grow that $30,000 to $50,000 minimum much faster.
Interesting. Yeah. I just had a friend that went all over the world and saw how cheap you can live somewhere else. I just throwing that out there. But it sounds like you're a competitive guy too. And I think the point is that that helps you stay focused with your goals, right? To have that number in your head that helps you propel you to the next level where you can, you can look at that on a spreadsheet or you can look at that in your goals and be like, this is how much I need to make. So you're not guessing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really important, even if you're not competitive, everyone should have a goal, like a mission. That's like I think the biggest thing with the special forces community is, or even any person in the military really, they have these missions that were provided for them or they provided themselves, and then they get out of the military and there's no more goals, there's no more missions. It's like always having a mission, right? Building a war chest with a specific amount of dollars, that once that dollar amount is achieved, the next goal is this thing. Goal once like for us, I'll just break it down for you. I have $100,000 that I want to make through wholesaling and acquisitions alone. I have a laser focus on what I'm doing. I'm not trying to buy and hold. I'm not trying to flip right now. I just want to wholesale until I hit that $100,000 mark. $50,000 will tell me that I'm on the right path. $100,000, then I'm going to start moving into flips. And then from flips to buying and holding commercial space or Section 8, I'm trying to figure out where I want to go with that. But I haven't really, part 3 or phase 3 of that mission or that goal is still a little foggy because I haven't made it to 1 or 2 yet. But
Right.
100,000 just from wholesale. Phase 2, start flipping and wholesaling, keeping the best deals for myself because I can purchase them. And then phase 3, which would be commercial property.
And yeah, that's amazing. I mean, a lot of people are making a lot of money off of wholesale. And to go back to what we first started with, too, even wholesalers, they're on social media, they're advertising. The local coffee shop or the laundromat down the street is also on social media advertising, trying to get that business and um, maximize their potential to sell. Like, how does social media fit in your grand scheme?
I was just gonna, because of what you just said, if I wanted to tie this up for everybody, we realized about 2018, if we had only one source of income, which was Instagram, and Instagram decided to change the algorithm. And again, my wife is a magician, so she sees things well ahead of. She's from Puerto Rico, and I think she's just connected to the earth. The earth is speaking to her always. She's very intuitive. And she said, all of my if I'm invested entirely 100% in Instagram and Instagram changes for any reason, my business is gone. It's affected. Either my account gets deleted and no one can find me, my business is gone. If I don't have Wi-Fi and I can't sell a product, I have no money. So we diversified, just like every good investor would, our time and our energy into other forms of income. So we started running other people's social media. I started offering video. I got into wholesale, but we're still running our own social media simultaneously. It's just we wanted to branch out, have websites, do private Zoom calls, get an email list of 50,000 people. Like these are all goals that we set for ourselves when she decided that, so that we didn't have to be reliant on one thing that was outside of our control.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah. So all of it's related back to social media because I'm only here because of it, right? We had one social media account that was successful and we grew it to a specific amount of dollars. And then by managing other people's, we met that same number. So we doubled our income by duplicating what we did for her page on other people's pages. And now I'm in real
Right.
estate so that I can take the money that we've made and distribute it in other ways.
That's interesting that you were able to replicate it. So obviously there's something there that's able to
It's
that's you're using a formula. I was
yeah,
just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that formula.
yeah,
Like what do you do when you get a hold of someone's social media account? How do you make it successful?
yeah.
Is there
I
like a
actually
10
had
step?
I had a conversation with my wife right before this, and she said, "Don't hold back like we would charge. I don't know how much we've charged for a brand style guide, but we make a brand style guide. So that's like the first thing we do when we take over an account, and go back about 10 minutes, I said, or 20 minutes ago, I said the first thing we do for intake is find out if you have a product to offer. Then you find out if they have an audience. Then you need to figure out how to communicate to that audience through color, font, and story. And that would be the brand style guide. And we've created that. I think the least amount we've ever charged was like $2,500 for a friend, because the brand style, it requires deep research into who your market is, who other people are that are doing something similar to you, the competitive nature of business, who you can collaborate with, how you can expedite, what podcasts that you can speak on, other people in your niche, colors of your brand, what you want to communicate through those colors. So if you look at like natural colors, natural products often have like a light green or soft green and a beige. Products that have a longevity, like Microsoft, IBM, those are actually the same blue. The same color blue is used on IBM and Microsoft. Other brands that we've run have said we want to use Microsoft Blue, or we've used Microsoft Blue since 1997, so we're going to keep using that. Red, like symbols of power with the shirt you're wearing right now. The shirt I'm wearing right now is saying I'm, loyal, kind, calm. Red is powerful, passion. There's like a whole psychology of colors, which I think you know.
Right.
And then there's
The
language. Go ahead.
I was trying to raise capital for a little bit, and I was recommended to use blue, like a soft blue, because it
Yeah.
is calming, it's reassuring, it's not threatening like red or, some gnarly neon green or whatever.
Right, or something ugly like yellow and bright yellow, which is just like uncomfortable. And then think of nature too. What's red in nature, which is dangerous usually, and what's blue in nature, which is water most of the time, life. The other thing is like it has to be pervasive. If you build this brand style and something you post, like let's say your colors are beige and blue, dark blue, just like my what's going on right here. And all of a sudden I post a video and it's like grainy and bright yellow, or I'm outside and it's just white, and it's like, well, that's super odd. Warm tones make people feel more warm towards you, like they feel more like close. They can get closer to you. You're a warmer person. Hypnosis too is like if you hold something warm in your hands while you're listening to somebody, you actually feel like they're warmer, because your brain is telling you like, wow, this is so. So if somebody hands you a hot tea and says, "Come into my house," you'll immediately start associating warmth.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how do you do that with color? How do you do that with brand? How do you do that to the customer? And what do they want in order to buy your product? What do they need to feel in order to feel safe? And then the other three things that are really powerful are like, known, and trusted.
Right.
Yeah, the like, know, and trust factor. How do we build that? Okay, first, what are you
It,
selling? Who are you selling it to? And then we go into it.
Interesting. So if you're like buying businesses, or maybe this is two separate things. Maybe if you just say your social media, like you're selling your social media service to someone, like, hey, I want to manage your business's social media account, and here's my webpage, and here's my Instagram. What kind of colors or themes should be on that on your own social media to make other people feel like their business account is safe in your hands?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if the colors on your personal Instagram or website need to convey that. I think those are different than like if I'm selling a service, and the service is going to be you're dealing with me. So I have to be like the easiest person to work with ever. You want to say yes and give me your money. And that's all personality. It doesn't really have much to do with color, psychology, or my brand, because my brand is me, the person. So like as a web page, like a sales page, the sales page should be aligned with your brand, but it depends on what your brand is doing. So if you were doing social media, I think a lot of the social media accounts that we competed with, they were soft pinks, off white, and like really light yellow, almost like Easter egg colors. Friendly, family, safe, Sunday. Those are all things that you think when you see these colors, like, Sunday, Easter Sunday, church, which is like, there's a lot of psychology in those colors, like light pink, light blue, pastels, very soft, artsy. You're very like creative. You want to be able to convey that in everything that you do. But most of the time, when we're talking to clients, we don't actually have a web page for our social media agency. We just do it in person, word of mouth, and it's by referral
Oh,
only.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm guessing there's more than enough people that need your service, and you have limited, like you're at the point where you're able to be kind of picky on who you choose and work with, because it does take a lot of effort to manage someone's social media and to get into the psychology of what they're trying to sell, who their audience is. It's kind of an in-depth thing. It's not like you're selling them a toothbrush.
Yeah. Yeah. When it's not, that's an interesting, because there's two types of social media accounts management. There's two types of agencies. There's one that'll do everything for you, and then there's the one that, like the boutique management company. And we actually only work with people who are willing to put the effort in.
Right.
Like I would never manage anybody's page, and I've tried that before. It's brutal because you're the one to blame, but there's really nothing to work with.
Right. Yeah, you care more about it than they do their own baby. Cool. Man, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I was gonna try to wrap up with a
Hmm.
good question. On that same line, I'm just curious, this is for me, my own selfish, but I know there's a psychology behind colors, but I just chose green, like bright neon green, bright yellow, and like black as like my colors I use on Riverside that we're recording on, or I do it on my YouTube channel. Is there any kind of business, maybe I'm not even in the right business to be using these colors. Is there any kind of business where like these bright, flashy colors um, would would be the most beneficial?
Go back over the colors you chose again.
Sorry, like neon green, neon yellow, and black. Those are just the reason I asked. So these are the colors that I'm drawn to. Like it catches my attention. It's like kind of like a comic book or um, like a cartoon or something. It catches my attention. Like maybe it's from childhood too, or like I see something that like, an action figure catches my eye and like it sticks off the shelf. But it might not be the right brand. It might not be the right colors for like someone that's, capital raising or wholesaling or, has a coffee shop. I don't know.
Well, everything you just said, if I were to take you on as a client right now and say, "Okay, I'm just going to consult with you here because you took me on your podcast. It'll be my last answer for us, and then we'll close it up. But you've
Yeah,
got
yeah.
neon green, black, and neon yellow. And you said older kind of cartoon. I'm thinking the first thing that popped in my head was like a retro comic book because you said comic book, and I was thinking like if you're thumbnail on the back of YouTube was that old graphic design with like the pixelated kind of Batman style comic books characters, or you were a character drawn, not there's filters
Hmm.
for this. You could use AI
Yeah.
could do it too. But retro comics like 1970s or 80s comics, and using
Yeah.
those colors throughout your entire brand. Then you could do a not gimmicky, but like you could wholesale with those colors and say like, new deal, and the old there's pop art, I think is what it was, comic pop art, where you could say like
Hmm.
new deal coming soon, and then underneath it could be like characters that you created for your wholesale company, like Nathan the wholesaler acquisitions, Nathan the dispo guy, and like you could have like a notebook, and you could be or a clipboard, and this is just a graphic, like a picture that I'm thinking in my head, where like old Batman style comic, you're holding a clipboard, and there's the writing is like you're all
Yeah, yeah.
this checks out, I'm gonna take it, and that could be like a really short 5-second clip, and then that fades away, and all of a sudden the details of the deal come up.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, it's something that could be kind of like a brand in and of itself. Like you kind of make that its own thing. For like, could you do that for like a coffee shop or a laundromat? Could you like do that? Like, because I want to do something that I'm just curious if there's a time to do that and time not to do that, where you need to like stop and be like, hey, it doesn't matter what you like. It's more about the customer.
Oh, it never has to do. No, it doesn't have to do with. I would never make that distinction. If you like something, if you don't like something, you're not going to do it a lot. You won't do it consistently. And if you
Right.
do like it and no one else does, then you can make a change. But you have to test it first. So like if you start with I'm not going to do what I want because somebody else might not like it, I promise you won't do anything. But if you start with what you do like and nobody likes it and you don't make a change, you're the problem. So there's two, I mean, that's great. You're in a great place. Just test it and see, like, I really like this. This makes me feel good. I'm going to try this for 30 days or 90 days to see if there's any, traction. And then if there isn't, change it
Thanks.
slightly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like there's a balance there. It kind of ties back to what you were saying too about you were kind of mentioning that earlier as in a way about listening to your audience, letting them kind of guide you with what you're
Yeah. Yeah.
selling, but also
Yeah.
kind of with your brand. Even I appreciate your time, man. I really do. I know you guys, it's 4th of July, you got to get going. But how can people reach out to you? Like, is there anything that you want anyone watching this to know about you, to reach out to you for?
Yeah, if any brand wants, I'll just consult for anybody on anything. So if you all want, like, if somebody's watching this and they want social media advice, consultation, if they want me to look at their page and see what they're doing right or well, if they want me to, I won't manage anybody's unless I really get like a good relationship going with them. But if they want me to look at it and say like, can we talk about how I can target this audience better? I'm super down to do it. And if you want to just maybe Facebook would probably be the best way to do it.
Okay.
I'm on Instagram as Channeled Ventures, which is one word, Channeled Ventures, but then my wife's account is Amorous Land, and we both do social media. So Amaris, AMARISLAND, and then Channel Ventures would be the best place to contact me if you're not going through Facebook.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'll put all those links in the description too, so anyone watching can reach out and say hi to you.
Okay, man. Well, I really appreciate it, dude. I hope we get to do this again, and we'll maybe I'll create like a structure. We can just go over it together, like a 30,000 feet.
Yeah, that'd be cool too. I'll create some questions and or like a template and see what you think about it, or I'll test your knowledge, see how good you are.
I'm into that, man. Yeah, maybe like we can do a little presentation on how to build a brand from scratch.
Yeah, or you can hypnotize me too. That'd be cool
I'm into that. I probably have already a
on
couple
camera.
times.
Yeah, crap. Yeah, I was gonna ask you if you're doing that. I'm trying to
You're
ground
safe,
myself.
man. You're safe. Your unconscious mind will only allow your conscious mind to do what it allows the conscious mind to do.
Yeah. Well, I think you're hypnotizing a great guy. I think people should reach out to you. I think you're very in tune with what makes social media work and where your goals are and how to hit them and what the strategy is for whatever you're working on. It seems like you're very intentional. I appreciate you, Steven.
Yeah, I appreciate you too, man. I'm glad we met.